Good afternoon, Janet.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah.
Good, ready to go.
Bursting with energy,
Yep.
as usual. Is that right?
I wouldn't say as usual, but today, yes.
Today, yes.
Today's a good day.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I guess I gotta say, thank you for agreeing to do this. As I always thank people, because you start off doing things and you want people to participate. So it doesn't always happen. So I say thank you very much. I've also got to thank your sister, Mary, for introducing us.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you to Mary. Yeah, brilliant. So I've got some basic questions I'm going to just ask you. We just go through the next probably about an hour and have a chat about life. Okay. My first question is, where were you born?
When or where?
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 Mm-hmm.
So I was born in Birmingham, City Hospital, or back in the day it was called Dudley Road. That's where I was born.
Wow, City Hospital. So
Yeah.
you were born in City Hospital, Birmingham, the second city. Wow.
Yeah.
And is that you were born of parentage, as in mom and dad born
Yes.
here as well?
No, mum and dad were born in Jamaica.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm the last of four.
You're the last of four?
Last of four, yeah.
The baby?
I hate being called the baby though. But it gets to a point where you don't have a name. You're either the youngest, or you're the baby, or you're such and such's little sister. And it's like, I have a name. My name is Janet. Please.
Oh, yeah, Janet. All right.
Yeah. I did get a bit struck with somebody once because they said, "Oh, you're Mary's little sister," and I was like, "No, I'm Janet, Mary's sister." And I was like,
okay.
"Oh, yeah."
Right.
And then they always call me by my name after that. So
all right. Okay. Well, that's fair. So how do you the fact that your parents were born in Jamaica, do you embrace that heritage, do you think? Or how do you see yourself as a individual?
Yeah, I've always said that. If people say, "Well, where are you from?" Or they ask about your heritage, it depends on how the question comes out. I was like, yeah, British born. I love to say I'm British, but I'm Jamaican British. It depends on what context the question comes in. But I'll always still refer to myself as Jamaican. And then parents would say something completely different. You're not Jamaican because you wasn't born in Jamaica, but I am of Jamaican heritage. So
yeah. I asked that question because I get so many different answers. Some people will see themselves as British Jamaican, or Jamaican, full stop. There is some quite strong feelings across the divide of people that I speak to for various reasons, colonization and etc. But I asked that question because I also like to ask people, how much do you sort of know about your Jamaica, your heritage? Like, have you been back there, to embrace the culture?
Yeah, I want to go back. I went once, back in 1998. I was 24. 25. I went there. I was 24. Went for my birthday.
Okay.
And I couldn't take the 6 weeks.
Brilliant.
Too long. But I was pregnant with my my eldest at the time.
Okay.
So everything that I wanted to do, I wasn't allowed to do because I'm not made of glass. Allow me to walk up and down and do.
Yeah.
So I don't think I got to embrace Jamaica how I wanted to embrace it. And I did go back to St. Catherine, where Mum was born. So I did see where my grandmother was laid to rest as well. So I've met my aunties, I've met cousins. So country was a completely different experience anyway. But I felt, in terms of, I was there for 3-4 weeks, I think. I remember, because it was such a while ago. but I don't think I got to embrace Jamaica how I wanted to embrace it. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a lasting experience for me. So I've always wanted to go back, but never got around to go. My son's gone back since, and he's desperate to go back to Jamaica. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my next questions, actually. The first one was, when you went to Jamaica, was it what you expected? Because sometimes you think about things before you see them, don't you, in places? Or was it different?
To be honest, I don't know what I expected. I think sometimes you have to go places with an open mind, because you don't want to go expecting it to be stunning, or it's going to be like real awful conditions or whatever. Because when you go, you might be disappointed in what you actually see. So I don't go with any expectations. But for me, the heat, loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I've always said to Mum, from when I was younger, I was never meant to be born in this country. It's too cold for me. I can't take cold.
I like that. So your son embraces his experience now then?
Yeah, he really I mean, he went when he was about probably about 8 or 9. I think he went with my sister and Mum. Went with his auntie and his grandmother, and he loved it. And I'm seeing pictures of him climbing up the tree and chasing chicken, and he's doing everything that I would have loved to have been able to have done myself, because you hear these stories of where they can go out and go pick mango off the tree, and I didn't get to embrace all of that when I went.
Oh, what a shame.
He'd love to go back, and he says when he goes back, he doesn't even want to go and stay in a hotel or in a resort. He wants to go where family is.
In a country.
Yeah, he actually wants to embrace all of that, but it's different coming from England, and he's been the next generation. He's clearly very English, and you know how parts of Jamaica is now. It's a shame, because he goes, they'll probably finish him off because he's English, and he's probably got a whole heap of money, and it's a shame, but he will go out there. He will.
Yeah.
Wanted to take Mum with him as well. So.
Oh right. So what do you say? Is that your mum?
He wants to take Grandma. Whether or not she'll be able to manage that long flight, I don't know if she'll be able to manage that long flight, because it's a long flight. But that's one thing that he said for years. When I go, I want to be able to take my grandma back to Jamaica with me.
I think that they're brilliant. So we're talking about grandma then. So grandma and granddad, are they both still with us?
Yeah. So my dad, he passed away in '94.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
He had cancer, so he passed away after a very short illness. But Mum is still very much alive and kicking. She'll be 88 in a couple of months.
Wow, brilliant. Did they actually share any of their sort of young years in Jamaica with you as children?
You kind of hear bits. You don't hear that many. And you hear things like when they were younger and what they did at school. And my dad would say like fights that he got into, and just little things that he would say. But they never really went into that much detail, because sometimes you can ask a question and they don't want to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
I think that's even like now, older, on reflection, especially the work that I do, you kind of figure out a lot of the times the reason they don't want to talk about things is because there's a lot of trauma that they've gone through for whatever reason, that certain memories, it's almost like it's triggering, and they don't really want to talk about it. So you kind of have to, if they tell you to shut up and leave me alone, you shut up and leave them alone.
And that's why I asked the question, you see, because you do hear that of a lot of the elderly. You're not sure whether or not it is something that's going to cause trauma or likely to cause trauma. But I don't think it's all of them have trauma to tell. A lot of them got very good experience. But I find that some of them are not good at sort of expressing themselves, especially to their children, you know, which is kind of come down the generations, because that's how their parents were. They didn't tell their children much. You know, it's like be seen and not heard as children.
Yeah. Exactly that. Stop asking the question.
Yeah. And I think some of them don't value the importance of history, passing history down, you know, from a cultural and all sorts of point of view. So yeah, very interesting. So you've got 3 other siblings, is that what you said?
Yeah, 2 sisters and an older brother.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's great. So you went to school in Birmingham, I take it. Which school was that?
I went to Stockland Green.
Darlington,
yeah.
Yeah. Was that good experience?
You know what? I didn't like school at all.
You didn't like school, full stop?
I didn't enjoy it. There were certain things that I enjoyed, certain lessons, because it goes by the teachers that you have.
Yes.
I actually enjoyed college more than I enjoyed school. And because the last year of school wasn't the most enjoyable. And I think that's more so with friendship breakdowns, and because you're studying for your exams and everything. It was on the back end of having a serious operation as well. So
what is that yourself?
That's myself. I was on the verge of being joining up with virtual harriers, because I was quite good at high jump.
Okay.
And so I picked it as a GCSE, and I was going to go virtual harriers. My brother and my sister used to run for virtual harriers as well, and do hurdles, etc. And I really wanted to go, and because I had an operation, I wasn't allowed to do sports for a year. So I was put into drama instead with girls that I've just...
So whereas previously you did a lot of sports, all of a sudden you weren't doing it?
I wasn't allowed to. Couldn't do no running, couldn't do my high jump, couldn't do trampolining. I was involved with everything. I did netball, rounders, hockey, athletics. It was like 200, 400, 800 meters. I did a high jump. I loved all of it. And then it's like all of a sudden, well, you're not allowed to do it. You've got to wait a year. Well, don't want to. So that was really difficult for me, because school wasn't great. And because I wasn't 100% sure in what I wanted to do as well. And I think this is the hardest thing when you're at school. You do exams and they expect you to know, right, this is my plan and this is what I'm going to do for a job once I've left school and college. Not realising this is what I say to my boys all the time. You can change your mind. You don't have to be, whatever decision you make at 16 is the decision you're going to do. So when it came to going to college, I went to art college. It was the best 2 years ever.
So let me ask you then, did you say prior to leaving school, this is what I wanted? Or did you just go into something that you were good at?
I think it was a case of when, you go and see the careers advisor and they look at the kind of things that you can do. And it's almost like they always try to push you in one direction. It's like, go and work in the office, you're quite good at that, or go and do. And it's like, my dad wanted me to be a nurse. I don't want to be a nurse. That's not me. Right. And because my sister had left and gone and done her A-levels, I was told, well, you need to go and do your A-levels. Well, I don't want to do my A-levels. Okay. I don't want to follow what somebody else is doing. I want to do something that's going to make me happy and what I'm going to enjoy. But me and my sister, we used to always sew all the time. I was always making things. I was making things to wear to school, even if it wasn't part of uniform. I'm still wearing it to school. And my mum had, yeah.
So are you telling me that you're a bit of a rebel?
I became one, just to a little point.
So, I mean, I can imagine you turning up with some sort of whatever you made, and it's not a part of the school uniform.
I think for me, I've always loved denim, and I made a denim skirt once, and I wore it to school, and they said, this isn't part of uniform. I was like, yeah, I know. and I got away wearing it. And even like culottes, I love culottes. And you're talking back in the 80s, the like wide leg trousers, not full length, you know, like the cropped wide leg trousers. And I made myself culottes. I can't even think in whether or not they look terrible or not, but I wore culottes to school as part of my...
So what age were you then? If you make, you know, because, you know, being able to make something like that, what age were you?
At 14, 15.
Ah.
Yeah, 14, 15, 16. So,
not everybody can do that at that kind of age. No?
No, my mum she had one of those old pedal singer machines. So that's how I learned how to sew, because mum used to make our clothes for us anyway. My oldest sister used to always be cutting things up and changing it around and everything.
Right.
So me and Mary used to kind of make toys as well. We used to make stuffed toys and give them away, and was always trying to make something. So I was always on this machine. I made my very first pair of jeans on that singing machine.
Wow.
Yeah. So somebody says to me, you know what, you're very good at designing and making things. So why don't you go into fashion? And I was like, okay. I never thought about it. Even when I was on work experience, there was a company called La Rose in Hockley. It was on Branston Street, I think it was in the Drury Quarter. And I was on work experience there. So they made clothing. And it's only because I became ill that I missed out on the second week, because I had to just leave. So it was, you know, that's kind of sparked, well, you know what, this is something I can potentially go into, making clothes. I want to be a designer. I don't want to be a dressmaker. I don't want it to be this hobby. I want to be a designer. I want to be able to do those kind of things. And I went to Birmingham Institute of Art Design.
Is that the college that you talked about?
Yes, it was part of Birmingham Polytechnic before it turned into university. So it literally did that merge round about that time. So I did a BTEC in fashion and textiles, and that was the time when BTECs were proper BTECs. They were like a foundation degree, because it was so intense.
Right.
With live projects, you know, you go abroad, you work with like these big companies that you do projects with as well. And I loved every minute of it. I mean, some of my friends that I've got now is who I met when I was at college.
And how long was that course for at college?
How long was the course?
It
was just a 2-year course, but it's almost like it was almost like a really great family environment. It was fun. Most of the skills, I say the majority of the skills that I've got now is because I learned from when I was on that course and not from my degree. Right.
So did you go into that sort of field straight from college?
Yeah, so from college, I went to Bristol, and I did a degree in fashion in Bristol.
What? Bristol University?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every minute of it. I did not experience. Now the course wasn't great. I didn't feel like I was necessarily supported very well, and I was a subject of a lot of racism when I was down there. Oh yeah. I moved in the 3 years. I probably moved about 5-6 times.
When you say move, right, you mean just having to go from one accommodation to another?
Yeah. When I first went down there, I was staying with an uncle, and you know, it was okay. It was in a black area, but the distance from there to the university was like 45 minutes there and 45 minutes back.
Wow.
And it was okay. And then I moved closer, and you know, one of the areas that I lived in, it was right by where the National Front was. And, you know, I used to go running of an evening, and it was closer to the university, which was so much better. But it's almost like, where's the balance? So when I used to go running, you see these skinheads outside this chip shop. And it used to frighten me, because on my course, there was only about 5 of us that were black. And being in and I say predominantly white area, it was a white area. To So I'm going running. So I'm going to run to my friend's house, which is about 20 minutes away. So I'd run to her house and then put on my ankle weights and I'd run back. But I always had to pass this chip shop. And it got to the point I was actually scared because I'd had experiences of, people driving by and throwing bananas at me, still in their skins.
Is that right?
Yeah, I had eggs thrown at me as well. There was one point for about a good 2-3 months I was being called the N-word almost nearly every day.
Oh my goodness. And that's just people in the cars and on the streets and
yeah. I'd always say they would never come right up to your face, but it was always in passing. And when I brought it up when I was at university, I said to my personal tutor, this is what I'm experiencing. It's making it very hard for me to enjoy this experience of being at university and doing the work that I'm doing. And she said, racism doesn't exist anymore.
Is that what she said to you?
Says to me, yeah. And then when I explained some more things of what happened, she turns it and said, well, I suffer a form of racism because I'm a woman too. And it's not the same thing. And I said, but you know what? It's okay. And when you hear a person say, you know what, it's okay, it's not okay, but you know what, I'm leaving you with whatever opinions you got. I was not supportive with it at all. It wasn't the nicest of experiences.
And I guess there was no one else within the university that you could go to.
There's always these clubs for Black students. What was it called? I can't remember what it was called. ACS, African Caribbean Society. So you get all the Black students from across the different sites who would come together and do events, and there'd be football teams and netball and whatever. And you'd meet up with different universities across the country. But within those spaces, it's like when you're in study mode and you've got a lot of work to do, got tight deadlines, you don't always get an opportunity to meet up with everybody else socially. But work to do. So everybody that was Black within my course, within my site, we kind of gel together because it's almost like magnets. You see a Black person,
yes,
you like this.
Yeah.
You're going to be my friend whether you like it or not.
Were you able to
works out that way?
Yeah. Were you able to share, the fact that somebody was throwing banana skins at you or banana at you, whatever?
Yeah, we'd always share our experiences anyway. Some have it worse than others, but again, it depended on where you were. And one of the things that kind of kept me sane was I didn't have a TV for the 3 years that I was there. So I never watched TV, but I had a record player. So music for me was always the thing that kept me going. And I built up quite a great relationship with the record shops. So they would give me like DJ promos and white labels and all these things from America. And it's like I had a wicked record collection until someone decided they wanted to borrow it and not give it back. So
Is that what happened?
Yeah, I've held on to that for 30 years. It's like, I want my records back. I don't even know where this person is now, but yeah, I was absolutely gutted because some of those records you couldn't get them again. But music is really it's something that kept me sane for the 3 years that I was there, and that's why how I work now. I work with music. I've always got to have music playing in the background. And yeah.
So from the college then, university at Bristol. Did you say to yourself, I want to do this? And you went and you did it? What happened next?
Yeah, so I wanted to be, I thought, right, I'm going to be a designer. Anybody that does fashion, I want to go into designing, whether they're working for somebody else or they're working for themselves. And so my plan was, I'm going to come back to, I didn't actually want to come back to Birmingham. I wanted to be a designer, and that was it. And we had Student Fashion Week, and I went to London. There was a wicked show because I have all the students showing their work, massive catwalk. You've got people that are there are scouting for new designers. And I'd actually had a phone call a few days later. They called, because on the cards I had, it had my mum's telephone number on there. And they called and I had to go to London for an interview.
Oh.
So it was they was taking on 2 graduates, one as a female designer, one as a male designer. So they wanted me as a female designer, and it would mean moving to London. Great, brilliant opportunity, and the fact that somebody found me and I didn't have to find them, it was brilliant. Had the interview, they were just setting up, I think it would have been on Oxford Street or somewhere like that. Really beautiful space. It would have been absolutely fantastic. Trying to make arrangements for when I'd moved to London, and then it must have been a few weeks before I'm trying to organise where I'm going to be staying. They contacted me and said that they've given the jobs, not just the one job, both jobs, to a more experienced designer because it was cheaper for them to have one designer rather than 2 graduates.
No.
I was absolutely gutted. I was gutted. And I was 21 at the time. And then, you know, when I come back, soon after my dad was diagnosed with cancer as well. So everything was just kind of snowballing. I went to Handsworth College to do a tailoring course just so I can keep my feet in it, so I don't lose momentum. And because he passed away, I ended up leaving the course and never went back into doing that. But I was always designing. I was always making for people. People would me, oh, I need an outfit for the going out somewhere, and so I'd make it.
Yeah. So your dad passing away, how did that affect you?
That was it was hard because I had kind of like at some point a back and forth relationship with my dad. My dad didn't want me to do fashion. He didn't even want me to go to Bristol. I showed him my portfolio of work and he just kind of flicked through it and then put it down. And then that was it. He didn't tell me anything else.
Oh, because he wanted you to do nursing, I believe you said.
Nursing, yeah. And because my sister was doing law, it was a case of, why aren't you doing something like that? And this is the one thing that I've always disliked, is don't compare me to somebody else, because what they're doing isn't necessarily what I want to do. And even if you're doing the same things, you shouldn't really compare 2 people. So it was a bit frustrating. And what was just kind of frustrating with the whole thing, my dad used to make shoes.
Oh, did he?
He used to make brogues, and he's a cobbler, he used to repair shoes. He was just, the way that his attention to detail was just...
That's quite a talent there. That's not everybody's got that kind of
But he didn't want me to do fashion. It's like,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
How did mommy feel about that? What was your mother's perspective on? Is it similar to your dad's, or was she different?
Well, because my mum did nursing as well, and I think it's looking at what's a solid career. And if you look at what our parents did, it was always, you know, when they came over, it was, you've got nursing, they're driving the buses, on the trains, you know, everybody had like a solid, a secure job that they were going into. And if you do anything to do with the arts, well, it's not a proper job, is it?
Well, I guess also for them, the knowledge they have about anything outside of that is probably a daunting prospect, because they just don't have the knowledge of what that would entail. Do you know what I'm saying?
And I suppose it seems like it's a hobby. It's not, you know, because I think about my dad, and this is, I think, on reflection, where for me it was just still very confusing, because my dad's suits were always made by a tailor.
Wow.
If you see my dad going out, he's got his shirt and his tie, his waistcoat, and his suits were so well made, beautiful fabric. They were just next level. And to know that, you know, this is how you dress, this is what you always have, but you don't want me to do the same kind of thing. And he never really well, that's the thing, he didn't get to see
Yes.
how
Yes.
good it would actually be.
Yeah. And that's why I was asking the question to say, you know, how did you take it? You know, and how did you take his passing and all that sort of thing, you know?
It was, I think with grief as well, it's one of those things that it hits everybody at different stages, you know,
Indeed.
everybody grieves differently. And it was hard. I think sometimes some years were harder than others because when somebody passes, you've always got those firsts. There's always going to be something that you wish that your dad was around to see, you know, how that he was here to see what I did with him. You know, having illustrations of him put on a big wall as part of the work.
Yeah. Well, talking about that then, I mean, you know, you obviously progressed from your university to Handsworth College and whatever, and gone into, is that into employment, or did you just continue to
No, I just
do your own
continued
thing?
to carry on, do my own thing. But even then, back in the 90s, you're still struggling to, I mean, fashion is very hard to get into. There's so much competition. And I was turned down. And this was just before I said, you know what, I'm done. Don't want to do this anymore. I'd applied for the Prince's Trust. Help support me set up a business and whatnot. And there was other places that would, you know, could help support what I wanted to do. And I had business plans, everything was already sorted. And I went to the Prince's Trust and they turned me down 3 times. There was another lady that was designing, she was based in the custard factory. I can't remember what her name was. And I was always remember, this is going back to that thing about being compared to somebody else.
Yeah.
And they said that we cannot support both of you because you're both doing fashion. But my work is completely different from hers. So, well, we know the quality of work is really good. Because I'm looking at timeless classics, and even though I do casual wear, it was also like timeless soft tailoring and that kind of thing. But they said, well, because we're funding what we can't fund the both of you. And it was always that same thing, well, we can't do the both of you, or we can't do you and this person at the same time. And then with some other experiences, I just thought, you know what, I'm done. Don't want to do this anymore. And
so,
I was not.
So you wanted to abandon the fashion world? Is that what you meant?
It's not even so much like abandon it, because I had my industrial machines as well at the time. So I was always sewing. I could sew till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, sleep for 2 hours, and I'm back up again. And I'm sewing again for the whole day. I was always making for somebody, for myself, or for what I was doing loads. But I think it's when you have more than one bad experience.
Yes.
And you've got people that think just because you can sew, it's cheaper. It's not. No. If you was to charge an hourly rate for all the hours you put into the preparation and the making, yeah, you couldn't afford. People wouldn't spend that kind of money. There's a lot of going, and I make the patterns. It's not like I'd buy a pattern and I would make the patterns from your measurements.
Yes.
You were a mock-up, which is what a mock-up in a different fabric, and then I'd make it and you take it, and then off you go, happy as Larry.
So that's quite unique then to that person then, really.
Yeah. And they'd always have their pattern. I would keep their pattern in a file. So if you ever come back and you needed something else, then your pattern would off that. But I had one really bad experience with one lady, like really bad. And, you know, from that experience, I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. And then I went to work in, where did I go and work? I went to work in an office. The one thing that I didn't want to do, but it's like bills still need to be paid. So I just kind of did a U-turn. But I always needed to be making something. My machines were there, they're not going to be gathering dust. So I was always making things. But I was very selective in who I was making things for.
Right.
You know what, I'm done. I don't want it.
So how long did you do the admin for then?
I did that for, gosh, about 10 years.
Really?
Probably about 10 years. I mean,
it's just a matter of paying the bills, I suppose, is what you
yeah. I mean, it's not even a case of, because I worked at Hansel College and I moved from there. Um, I mean, I worked for a tire company at one point.
Wow.
Yeah, that was, that was quite an experience, but I was quite good with that because there's certain things that I was able to do for the benefit of the company as well, which was good. Moved from there.
So sorry, before you move on from there, then you went for a tire company as what?
I was in there. Was it customer? I think it was just classed as customer services there.
Okay.
With this company, am I allowed to say it?
Yeah.
Does it matter? Yeah, I used to work for ATS.
Okay.
So,
oh, yes.
Oh, that was it. It wasn't customer service. It was their servicing and maintenance or whatever department. So when you've got like fleets of cars, when a company has a fleet of how many cars, so my department, we would sort out their servicing, the MOT, and if they had breakdowns and whatever.
Oh, right. That's quite an experience.
It was, you know what, it was okay. And sometimes it's about the people that you work with, not necessarily about the company that you work with, because there was it was amazing set of people that I worked with then. And we was taught how to change tires. So I know how to read the tires, and it was a case of I can't remember exactly what it was, but I'd done some research, and I was able to manage to do something for Michelin. I can't remember what it was, but it was a big deal for the company. I actually can't remember what it was. But the reason why I had to leave there, because my eldest was only little at the time, and he was still in nursery. And they changed the shifts, and every shift option just didn't work, because I can't take him to nursery for the time that he starts because I'm supposed to be starting work at that time. And then by the time it finishes, I could pick him up, but I can't take him, but I can pick him up. Or the time that I'd have to pick him up, I'm supposed to be starting work. And there was 5 options and not one of them fit for me.
That's amazing, isn't it? 5 options and none of them.
Yeah, not one. Wow. Not one. And I complained about it, and they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And, I found another job, and I went to work in student services at Hansel College. And I was there for a while, and then I moved and worked for a charity. I was at the charity for quite a while. And then when that closed down, it was a case of, what do I do now? I don't really want to go and work in another office. I mean, even with the charity I was working for, I was still being a creative, because we used to do like ESOL classes, and it was in Neutral. So what we would do is teach the Somali community, mostly the Somali women, how to speak English. So with my classes,
you used to teach that.
Yeah. So what I would do, this is when I was like the operations manager for the building. Wow. So what I would do is I teach you English, you teach me Somali. I don't remember words. Don't ask. I don't remember anything. But what I would do, I'd do it within the sewing. So when they come in, they'd have to greet me in English. I'd have to greet them in Somali. And it's like all the equipment, like the scissors, the sewing machine. And so while they're sewing, they have to be learning English at the same time. So because I was doing this, I did a adult learning qualification as well, because I thought, no, I could actually go into teaching adults. This will be all right to do this. But when I left there, because I wasn't 100% sure in what I wanted to do, but I knew I couldn't be stuck in an office. I was itching to do something. And I went to the careers advisor at Birmingham University, and I said, I don't know what I want to do.
Just like that.
I don't know what I want to do. I need to do something. And this is me in my 30s. And this is why I say, especially at school, what you decide you're going to do then, you can change.
Absolutely.
How many years later? And then when I went to college, I says, okay, list your experience. What have you done? What can you do? And when I went through everything, I says, well, you've got more teaching experience than you actually think you've got. Why don't you go into teaching? And then I went and did my PGCE to teach textiles in school, secondary schools, yeah. And I did that for 11 years.
For how long?
11 years.
Was it an enjoyable experience?
No. I'm not going to lie about it. Wasn't. I mean, there was some experiences that were good, and I've learned a lot from it. But the one thing that I got from school, the fact that I didn't enjoy it the first time around when I was there, I didn't necessarily enjoy it the second time around, is very much became a tick box exercise. And I felt like if I couldn't be as creative as I wanted to be, then it has an impact on the students you're working with, because there's only some police hats and things that these kids are not going to be using again. If it's enjoyable to actually teach it, then what are they actually getting out of it? And it's all more so about marking and data. And even when I was teaching GCSE, and you get all these girls, because we'll say in textiles, it's always the girls. I said, well, what about the boys? I got boys. I want to be able to know how to sew. I mean, I taught my oldest how to sew when he was 8, when he first used a sewing machine.
Wow.
So I'm telling these kids, it's not just about making prom dresses. You want to make a dress that, realistically, I'm not going to lie to you, are you going to be able to make it quality for you to be able to go out and dance around in it? No, and that's not disrespect to you, but I haven't got the time or the space to be able to do it the way that you would do at college level. So I would encourage them, you know what, you can make something that's useful to you. So if you want to cover a chair. That time it's big talk from me, because I've never covered a chair before in my life.
Yeah.
I actually bought one off eBay, went right by the airport to go and collect it, took it to school, and I left it in my classroom. And there were so many, I started pulling it apart gently because I needed the covers as a pattern. And even like when, I've got kids in detention, miss, what can I do? You can help me strip the chair. And give them the arm with the tools. I says, be careful, don't rip the fabric because it needs to be intact. And someone just come in and just like, well, can I just pull apart this chair for you, miss? I was like, yeah. But I had to end up covering it because all the wadding and everything, they used to come in and start picking at it. So I'd have to cover it up. But over the 2 terms, you're talking 6 months, all these students that came in, they would slowly see the progress of this chair being covered. And that was the start of, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do, but if you put your mind to it. Yeah. So I had some making bedding, but with the bedding, I had to put an accessory with it. If you want a fabric that's printed, you can't buy a fabric that's got print on it. You have to create the prints yourself. So we had bedding. There's some that actually made dresses, did kimonos. A couple of boys made like rucksacks, but they had to print it, the outside and the lining. They had to do all these things themselves. So it opened up this thing about, the possibilities of what you can do.
Yes.
It's endless. And even with marking, at the start of every year, you're supposed to write on the front of your book what your predicted grade is as GCSE.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'd have to write it on the book. And what I would say to these kids, so write that down because that's what you're supposed to do. But right at the top of your book or your folder, write the grade that you want, not what's expected of you, what you want. So even if you're predicted a D or an E, or even a C, what do you want? Do you want an A? Do you want a B? What is it that you want? Be realistic. It's not a case, well, I'm all right with a C. No, you're not all right with a C. What do you want? Because I never had that. It's like, well, what do you want to do? What are you aspiring to be? So they would write their grade at the top of their folder, and I says, and that's what you work towards. And that's what they would do. And I had one student who, she was predicted a D, and she got a B in her exam.
That's quite a difference, isn't it?
And I'd always use that as an example. It's like, you know what? It's not about what's expected of you. What do you want to do? And that's what you aspire. That's what you aspire to.
Wow. And I can see that you sort of created this creativity in the minds of those individuals. It's like setting them out in the world, isn't it? To say, there's a wide world you can achieve. And that's what's so missing at times in other schools, who don't open up your mind to that possibility of creating what you want. I get that. So where did you go from there then at that time?
I think with teaching is not for the faint-hearted. Unless you're in a school that you absolutely adore, that you just love everything about it, teaching is really hard. And when people say, you know what, you've got an easy job, you've got all the holidays, and you've got, no. It's not a case you've got the holidays, because you still got to plan ahead for the next term. You still got to do marking, you've got to catch up on ready, and you know, reports and this and that. So school doesn't finish at 3:30. You know, there's times I was leaving school at 6 o'clock in the evening because it wasn't fun. And you know, some of the very first school that I worked in as a trainee, that one almost broke me.
Really?
Really did, yeah, because some of the kids there were actually quite racist as well. And it's almost like, because they were so discreet about it, you'd walk past, because it's in a predominantly white area, and you'd walk past them and they start singing Bob Marley songs. It's like, really? And then when you complain about it, so we're just singing. But
it's targeted, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And the way that I was swore at, it was really, really, really bad.
It's just lack of respect as well, isn't it? They didn't see you as somebody probably.
Yeah.
What are you doing there teaching me? You know, as a.
A lot of the times I didn't feel supported as well. So the one thing that I did in 2015, I mean, the school that was there at the time, I looked at all those kids as they were my babies. I adored them, even the ones that, you know, used to get on my last nerve and I splashed with. There were some really beautiful students at that school. And there was a lot of times I enjoyed the process and because I felt like I grew a lot more as a teacher as well.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but I had a really bad year. There was a lot of things going on personally. I had a slip disc and sciatica at the same time.
Wow, that must have been painful.
Oh gosh, it's a pain. I said I'd rather go through childbirth than go through that again, because at least, you know, with childbirth, it's going to come to an end at some point.
Right.
But with that kind of pain, it's next level. And my youngest was only, I think he was coming up to about 1.5 years. So he was only a baby still. And there was just so much going on. I thought, you know what, I cannot do this anymore. And when I went back into school, and I always knew that I wanted to set up a business. I didn't know what. I knew it was going to be creative, but I wasn't 100% sure in what I wanted to do. And I'd got into school this September, and it was something that my head of department had said, and I felt like it was really disrespectful in front of students as well.
Oh, in front of the students?
In front of students, yeah. He did it quite a lot, and I felt like he undermined me quite a lot. And I ended up going, I made a decision right there and then, I'm done. And it's not even because I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I can't. So this was September. And I went to the head teacher and I said, if I have to stay here longer than I have to, what I'm going to do. I'm not going to say.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was not happy. And I says, I'm gone and I'm giving you my notice. I'm leaving at Christmas. Because as a teacher, you have to give at least a half term's notice.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They had almost a whole term's notice that I'm going to be going in December. And so I knew I was going to set up a business. The plan actually was to set up an alternative provision. So with alternative provision for children that are managed moves out of schools, if there's behavioural issues or if they're struggling within the education system, because education is not for everybody.
No.
And you can't put everybody in the same box. And they say you've got to treat everybody differently. But in certain circumstances, they're all being put in the same box and expected to be the same.
Everybody to fit in. Yeah.
Yeah. And with some of these alternative provisions, they are, you've got construction, you've got hair and beauty, you've got health and social care, you've got childcare, and it's a similar kind of things that they're always being pushed into because it seems like it's the easiest option. So for me, I wanted to do it as, okay, for those that, you know, you've got to do your core subjects, your English, your maths, your science, but if you have to come out of school and you want to do something different, well, what about fashion and textiles, graphics, photography? So I wanted to do something around that, to work with young people that aren't necessarily academic, but they could learn different side of being academic through being creative, because it's not to say it's an easier way, but it's a more enjoyable way to learn. And so when I left this school, I was actually headhunted for another school. So I turned down one job to potentially be the head of the design and technology department. Even though they offered me more money, I said, it's not about the money. I left the other one and said, your money can't keep me. So it's not about the money. I'm not going to go from one bad situation and potentially go into the other. Because, you know, that saying is the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yes.
My saying is the grass isn't always greener. Sometimes it's astroturf.
Yeah.
The same kind of quality. So I ended up going part-time, and it was difficult financially to go from being ahead of your subject to now being a teacher that's only working 2-3 days a week. But my stress levels went from up here all the way down.
Oh, that's very important, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And from then, I set up the business that same year, 1st of January 2016. So I set up Feed My Creative. And
you set up what?
A social enterprise, Feed My Creative. So it was all about working with young people to show them how they can be creative. So it's not just working within a box, you're working outside of the box and with the box itself. So you can be creative in how you're working. And that's what I was saying, I was looking at the lines of a alternative type provision for young people. And I'd actually approached IKEA, fabric for school, because the school didn't have no money, they didn't have no fabric. And someone said approach them, because for their corporate social responsibility, you will get, they can donate. And I went there, I mean, it was quite a lot of conversations, and they ended up donating 10 black bags full of bedding, cushions, curtains that I'd pot and pan. I had so much textiles. I didn't know what to do with it. And I ended up, school had a cupboard now full of, because if you think about a quilt cover, like a Super King, there's a lot of fabric in that.
Yes.
And so now cupboard is full of all these different kinds of quality materials. And I've also got all these fabrics that are in, some of them are still in packets. Some of them might have been ex-display, so it's still got the cable tie thing that was hanging up on display. But I've now got all these things, you know what, I could actually donate these. And I'd arranged to do some workshops with the YMCA that wasn't far from me. I'd had 3 sewing machines that I bought from the school because I was going to throw them out, so I just bought them off them.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what, I can do this. I can be mobile. So instead of you coming to me, because I haven't got a space for you to come to do sessions with, so I 6 weeks for free at the YMCA. Remember, I'm teaching part-time, so I was able to do. And then I could teach them how to sew and make things. And because I got these fabrics from IKEA, I can show you how to be sustainable. So rather than going out and buying fabric, I can show you what you can make out of a pillowcase, quilt cover, or a settee cover. There's all these things. Rather than a cushion cover, let's make something other than a cushion cover out of the cushion cover.
So, So IKEA believed in your venture then?
Yeah. And I hadn't even, well, at the time it was, I was donating for school, but when I went back and they said, I said, if you've got any more, just let me know. And I had an honest conversation. I'm actually setting up a business and I'm going to be doing this, this, and this. And says, as long as the labels are cut out and you don't resell them, you can do what you want with it. And I was like, yes. And it went from every couple of months. Literally, it was like the first donation was like a couple of months later, I got another donation. And then it was every couple of weeks. And then it went to weekly. And sometimes it was twice a week. I had so much, I didn't know what, it literally took over my house.
Oh
and
my
my house. So anybody that was in need, that needed, I was donating to those in supported housing, those that were housing women affected by domestic abuse. You've got children's homes, you've got families that are low income that were, so I was able to donate so many things.
And is that under your business heading? Was that under your business?
Yeah, it ended up being under the business. I said, this is what I'm doing. This is brilliant. So I'd send them photographs of anything that was made with the fabrics that I'd got from them.
Wow, that's
and
fantastic. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So and then you went on from there then to, again, I suppose you got to a point where you started doing something full time. Is that how that went?
Yes. So I was still teaching and doing Feed My Creative part time, and it got to the point that Feed My Creative was getting so busy that it was affecting. Well, school was affecting the work I was doing with Feed My Creative. I had a week booked with the Prince's Trust, and I wasn't allowed to do it because school wouldn't give me time to go out and do this session. And the thing is, what I would have got paid with the Prince's Trust for the week more than what I would have got paid for the school for the month. So, like, you're costing me money now. And it just got to the point I thought, you know what, I'm not enjoying teaching. I don't want to do this anymore. I want out. So I made that transition, and because all that time I was making this plan. This is what I want to do. I'm trialing out. I'd registered 2 years later as a community interest company.
Right.
So I had legal structure. And then from then, the more work I was getting coming in, I was like, you know what, there has to be that transition to just kind of let teaching go. And during lockdown, or just before lockdown, I just kind of cracked out of school. And then we went into lockdown 2 weeks later, and I was like, oh, okay. But it's for me, it just kind of worked out for the better, because now I left teaching just over 2 years ago. It was 2021. I left teaching. Was it 22? So I was 21 or 22. No, it's not, in 2021. I left teaching, and I've been doing Feed My Creative full time ever since. And I've won awards for it. I've had national recognitions, articles in the paper. Yeah, it's been
fantastic. And talking about exhibitions, then, your exhibition at the National Memorial Arboretum, I mean,
yeah.
About that. Tell us more.
I think that is probably one of the biggest highlights, because it took me quite a long time. I say a long time, it was on for 2 months, but it took me about a month before I realised, you know what, this is huge.
So how did you get into that, in terms of them knowing about you and then you're going to do an exhibition?
Well, I'd actually done, I had some funding as part of the Birmingham 22 Festival when the Commonwealth Games was on.
Oh, yes.
I'd launched a project called The Chapters of Our Lives for that. And it was all about interactive storytelling. So you've got photographs you can touch, and you can hear the person tell the story behind those actual photographs. So they kind of hold the narrative. It's not me interviewing them. It's you telling about these photographs that you hold dear to you. What's the story behind them? So I did that, and I did that over 7 days. And it was somebody that I'd met who was doing projects and exhibitions, part of the festival themselves. So they never even got to come to mine, but I told them about it. And I wrote in a notebook, 2023 first solo exhibition. I just wrote it and left it. I don't even remember what notebook it's actually in. And the first email that I had in January 23 was from somebody at the National Memorial Arboretum that said potential commission.
So where did they get your contact from?
The person that I spoke to the previous year had a conversation and recommended me. Remember, bearing in mind, this woman, I don't know her from anywhere. We spoke and chatted for about 45 minutes to an hour, and she recommended me to the Arboretum, who then contacted me and said, right, this is what we're thinking, come in and see us. And I took my sample, bit of work with the interaction on there, some of the books that were, I had part of the exhibition as well, brought it in, showed them the work that I did, and they says, right, yep, we don't need to look no further.
Wow.
That's how.
How did you feel at the time?
I was really excited. I didn't know what to do with myself, because sometimes when you've got a big thing that's going to happen, you don't talk about it as much because you don't want to jinx it.
No.
And I only told like a handful of people. I was like, you know what, this is going to be so exciting. And this is going to be brilliant. And I didn't just have one exhibition space. They gave me 2 gallery spaces.
So did you know what you wanted to do, or did you have to start making up as you go?
I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, because the initial part was what I had in the exhibition for the Birmingham 22 Festival. That was going to be one exhibition space. And then you've got the chapters of our lives, and then you've got the story continues. So story continues would be a continuation of somebody's story within the exhibition. And for me, if I'm going to tell the story about somebody, who better for, because the timing was, it was October, Windrush and Black History Month. Even though the work I'm doing isn't just solely about that, this for me, it's about storytelling and celebrating people. Yes. I thought, who better than continuation of the story of my own mum and her connections and her friends and her family.
Wow.
So the story continues is about my mum and her connections. And there was 4 of them. Was it 4 of them? 5 of them? 6, 7. There were 7 of them. So where that one differed from the other one, it was their narrative. So they chose their pictures and they told me about their photographs. With the story continues, you give me a collection of pictures and I ask you some questions. Similar to what we're doing, but not as long.
Yeah. And
they just had to tell me a bit about themselves, about work, about going out, about family, the things that.
So this is a recording, is it?
Yes, it was audio. So it wasn't video. It was just audio.
Audio, yeah.
Connect the audio to the images, so there'll be sensors that they'll be able to press and put on the headphones. You'll be able to hear. Wow. I made a keyboard out of wood that you could actually play.
So where did you get this concept from? What is it? Is it just sort of jumped into your mind, or
yeah? For me, it's like I have an out there idea, and I think to myself, can I do this? I don't know, but I'll try it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll just keep going until it does, and if it doesn't, I'll just change direction. But I'll always end up with a working model, and sometimes I surprise myself in what I can actually do. Yeah, and it literally blew a lot of people away, and it was on, as I said, for 2 months from the start of October to the 2nd of December, and it was really well received because it was more immersive. And when you give somebody a chance to be able to say as much or as little as they want, and you put on the headphones and you can hear music, or you can hear the actual person speaking about their life, whatever that may be, and you're seeing pictures of them when they were young, and so this is the actual person that's speaking. It's a completely different experience. So I love that I can switch from showing you and making and teaching you how to sew to make something to be able to create something where, you know, it's textiles and technology all combined together. So you're mixing tradition and a bit more modern things kind of merged into one.
And I can see the appeal there in terms of the onlooker, the visitor, you know, from whatever age, because you're talking about combining visual with audible, and also touching, you know, being able to just.
You can't do an exhibition. You're not allowed to touch anything. For me, it's like, be gentle, but you can touch everything, because something's going to have some kind of sound attached to it. Yeah,
that's fantastic, because that's where, especially youngsters, you'll certainly get them buying into what you're doing. You know, and from then on it just grows, and then, you know, touching and hearing the experience of whoever, you know, this might be, and to be able to do that about your mother. How good's that?
Celebrate mummy, because I thought, you know what, I don't want it to be a case of, you know, when you go to funerals and there's a eulogy and everybody's speaking wonderful things about the person that's just passed. For me, it's a case of, well, no, why can't I celebrate mummy while she's here?
Indeed.
You know, I want her to see it. It's just, everybody give her flowers. I mean, we was part of one of the projects I'm working on was selected as part of the National Lottery to have a portrait included on a installation at the Tilbury Docks in London.
Wow.
But there's this wire structure of a replica of Empire Windrush. And so these portraits were done of 5 different organisations, people for part of those organisations. That's then now on this structure. So me and Mum went to London for the unveiling of it. So there's this portrait of my mum, which she said, it don't look like me. I said, yeah, it does. You just have to look at the original pictures even together and you see.
Yeah.
Slightly abstract. But the fact is, my mum's picture is on this structure in London at the Tilbury Docks. And the significance of that, whether or not she came on that particular ship or not, those that came from the Caribbean and beyond, it's a powerful thing in what they've contributed to.
Yes.
So to have my mum as part, from celebrating anybody, I'm celebrating my mum first.
Yes.
And in fact, me and Mum stood there and did Channel 5 together. It was amazing.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not showing it, which is a bit frustrating, but to have her as part of something that's so
and a massive part of the Windrush, if not everyone, will resonate with your mother and, you know, her story.
Because people, when they were listening, they hear things that reminds me of my grandmother.
That's it. That's the point.
That's what it is. It's picking at these little things that you've got this, people are reminiscing. And for me, how I work, not just with the things I've done with the exhibitions, it's what I'm making with young people and whoever, it's giving you that alternative voice. So even making speakers out of jeans, which is one of my favourite things as well, you're giving this young person who's made that a voice to be able to, you know, they might not be able to speak on a one-to-one, even doing something like this might be very difficult for them. But if you've made something that they can record on their phone, because you incorporating the bit of modern, they can then record something and they present it on something that they've made that's projecting sound.
I love it. I love that.
It's reducing that anxiety of having to present in front of people. And you see press play and there you go.
Yeah, and it's a matter of creating another avenue, isn't it? You know, rather than the box that sometimes people think you have to squeeze into. You need to just open it up. And also what you're doing, what you've done, just think of that legacy for your mom.
Exactly.
You know, it's just fantastic. And, you know, like you say, you didn't wait for her to pass on.
No. And the same, Mum's 88. She's next level, my mum. And she's got the ails, the aches and the pain. She walks with a stick, but she's still very much up and down, doing what she wants to do, doing her exercise 3 times a week. But as I say, to be able to celebrate her and for everybody else to celebrate her to her face and to hear about the feedback and to see, and, you know, I remember you, or you knew my mum, the connections that I found has been, it's something else, because you don't realise who knows who.
And it's even more celebratory now, in my opinion, because look what she has created in terms of you children. You
Yeah,
know,
we're all doing really well in whatever avenue and whichever fields that we're doing, and you know,
she must be a proud mother. And like you said, unfortunately, Dad is not able to see. Well,
no,
certainly what you've done, but all the rest of what you guys are doing. This is fantastic.
mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so good. You know, we could go on talking
I know.
much,
Battery's
but
gonna run out soon as well. So.
yeah. But you know, I'm gonna have to say thank you very much for all of this because it's all inspiring, and we'll certainly, hopefully, link more to see what next, and
Definitely.
indeed, how we can work together.
There
You
is a
know,
what I have got something coming up in April. Um, with some of the funding I got from the National Lottery, celebrating Windrush 75. So it's doing it slightly different than I normally do it, but there's something coming up in April, so I'll share that with you when that comes up as well.
Excellent, and I must applaud you again, and indeed all your siblings and your mom, but you in particular for finding a way to actually do what you want to do and be so creative because it's very unique in a lot of ways what I've seen and heard about you. So we can I'd love to help to promote that. It's so fantastic. So let's see how we can work together on that. Absolutely fantastic. Have you got any questions at all for the forgotten generation, so to speak?
No, I think it's not even a question, it's more of a statement. It's don't be afraid to talk, because once you've gone, your voice is gone forever unless you have it recorded. And I think I know some people find it really hard to talk, and whether or not your voice doesn't have to be necessarily verbal, it's written, because there's too many photographs that you can find in a box somewhere that you don't know the stories behind it. You've got an opportunity, especially with how technology is now, record that conversation. It doesn't have to be visual. Record that conversation before it's too late, because to be able to go back and listen can be more comforting than you actually realize. So let's keep these stories going, because
and that's why
nobody can't tell our stories other than us. You don't want somebody else to tell it for you. You want to be able to tell it yourself.
Absolutely. And that's why the various avenues for people to tell their stories with the forgotten generations, from writing an article to a podcast where you're audible, to visual like what we're doing now. So the different outlets, as long as we do something to record our story, is just so invaluable, and archiving our own story so that generations behind, and other people, it's just other ethnicity as well, sharing theirs, they're sharing ours. And I think once people know about you as an individual, then there's a difference. You learn to respect each other more.
Yeah, 100%.
I got to say a massive thank you again as we come to the end of this, and good luck in the future.
Thank you. But we'll see each other again soon anyway.
Indeed.